So, welcome back everybody. There are a few changes again this time. Mainly I've had a new camera. It's only slightly better than the old one because I am still quite poor, but fingers crossed the audio's a little bit better and the video's a little bit better. And we're getting there, don't worry. So this time I'm back for the 2014 awards. I know most booktubers have done a top 14 of 2014, just their 14 favourite books from the year. But when I looked back over my last reading year, I realised actually I've read quite a lot of varied stuff. So I'm actually at the point where I can break mine down into categories. So I've got 7 different awards categories that I'm going to kind of nominate books for and choose winners for. So we've got general fiction, crime, sci-fi, teen and young adult, non-fiction, best debut, which I'll explain a bit more about later, and the best old book that I read last year. So that's anything from before 2014 that I only just got around to reading. So that's a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to take it anyway. The only other thing I need to clarify is that not all of these books were published exactly in 2014. 90% of them were published either hardback or paperback last year. There are a couple that were published at the end of 2013, but by the time I'd got them and read them, it was 2014, so I'm going to let myself off for them as well. So let's get straight into it with the fiction that I thought was best last year. I'm going to start off with an honourable mention, The Circle by Dave Eggers. It's a really interesting book about social media and technology and where it's going. It's about the main character, May, who starts working for The Circle, which is a social network which is starting to incorporate basically every aspect of life, down to voting, social security, your bank details, everything. And it's about her internal issues with where the network is going and the detail to which it's getting into everyone's life. And it's very well written, it's very, very thought-provoking, but it's definitely one worth a read, and even though it has got one of the darkest resolutions of any book, I think it's definitely one that's well worth a read. So the winner of my fiction of 2014 is this, Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healy. It's about a woman called Maud who's suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, one of the two, and she's starting to lose her mental capacities. And she's convinced that her friend Elizabeth has gone missing. She thinks that something's happened to her. And it's kind of part mystery, part crimey, but it's basically, the beauty of this is how well the author, who's only late 20s, gets into the head of someone with that kind of mental problem. And it's very emotional, it's very sad, it's a topic that's always got me really quite hard, and this book is no exception. It's one that's well worth the read. It's fantastic, even though it's fiction, to get more of an understanding of that kind of situation. And it's just come out in paperback. I think it's one that everybody should pick up. That's my favourite fiction of 2014. So on to sci-fi. My honourable mention for sci-fi is this. It's actually a trilogy. They were all published this year by Jeff Vandermeer. They're called the Southern Reach Trilogy. And as you can see, they're beautiful. They all got published in hardback. They are described as if Margaret Atwood wrote sci-fi, so it's very, very quirky and quite literary for sci-fi, and I absolutely loved this. Firstly, I thought it was great to have a trilogy published all in one year, not too long to wait. I've kept interested in the whole series throughout it, but also it's so well written and it's so interesting. The mystery keeps you going the whole way through the trilogy. The first book doesn't give you many answers, but it gives you enough to bring you back for the next one. If anybody likes sci-fi and wants something a bit different, take a look at that. My favourite sci-fi of 2014 is this, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. It's quite a good cross between sci-fi and kind of epic fantasy style literature. It's set on Mars, where there's a standard dystopian society. The bottom of the rung of the society are the Reds, who are basically slave labour, for the Golds, who are the ruling class. The main character, Darrow, gets caught up basically in trying to overthrow the Golds, and the way he has to do this is by pretending to be one. So what's really good about this is not only that it's quite an interesting story, but it's the character having to act like the very thing he hates, and actually being very good at being a Gold. And that's one of the most interesting aspects, is that it's not all about the sci-fi fantasy. It's as much about the character and how he feels about the conflict he's been put into. It's the first in a trilogy, so the second one's just come out, in fact, and that's one that's 100% worth a read. If you are all interested in sci-fi or teen young adult literature, this is the perfect kind of next step from there. So for crime, for me, there was only ever really one winner, which is this. It's called I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. It's without a doubt the best thriller I've ever read. And even though it is 800, 900 pages, I went on a holiday over summer with my family, and by the end of the holiday, all 5 of us had read this book because it's just so whirlwind, and once you're in it, you get proper caught up. It's standard guys out of the business, gets dragged back in for one last world-saving mission. But what's really interesting about this is it explores the culture of the terrorist as well. I don't normally like cultural stuff, especially kind of Middle Eastern set cultural stuff, just doesn't appeal to me. But in this, it's so well done and it's so gripping that it really adds a new dimension to thrillers that you quite often don't get. I can't recommend this highly enough. I talk about this to people all the time, and even though it looks daunting, please give it a read, it's brilliant. So my pick for best teen or young adult literature, my honourable mention goes to Half Bad by Sally Green. Got a lot of hype about this when it first came out, and I have to say it lives up to it. It's a really interesting concept. It's about witches, but it's not about witches as you would expect them to be. It's very much what Harry Potter did for wizards. And it's the standard black and white magic. Does he go evil? Does he go good? Caught between these two different aspects. And the characters are just so well formed and so interesting that you really just root for them more than I found in most other literature of this type. I hated Twilight and those kinds of things, and I'm willing to concede that these are not far away from that, but they're so much better done that I absolutely loved this, and I'm really excited for the next one to come out this year. So my pick as my Teen YA winner for 2014 is this, More Than This by Patrick Ness. I read this when the author came to visit the shop. I actually got to interview him, which was the most incredible experience. But basically, it's about a guy called Seth, and the first chapter is him drowning. Quite a unique way to start a book. And then he wakes up in this dystopian, post-apocalyptic world, and it's incredible. So much of the book is just with the main character and no other characters, and he does it so well. As he meets other people in this post-apocalyptic world, it's the most incredible relationships that they develop, and his story is so emotional. I've not read any teen literature ever that's made me feel quite so sad, uplifted, just generally emotional. And there's some themes in there you wouldn't expect it to cover. You don't see a lot of the twists coming, but it just fits together so well. It's a really accomplished piece of writing. I think Patrick Ness, this is his best book, and he's written quite a lot of good stuff. We'll go straight on to Nonfiction. Again, there was only one real choice for this for me. It's this, Do No Harm, Henry Marsh. It's quite an obscure topic. It's about brain surgery. And I'll be honest, it's not my normal kind of cup of tea, brain surgery. But there's just something about this. The way he writes makes it so poetic and beautiful that I really started to wish I was a brain surgeon. It uses real life cases, and it's very sad. It's very brutal about it all. But it's just so interesting to get this perspective from a brain surgeon, not just on the surgery, but the treatment, the patient care, everything. It's just so well written, so well put together, and so raw that it's brilliant. I never thought I'd enjoy it, but I absolutely loved it. And that's without a doubt my favourite non-fiction of last year. Okay, so I've realised best debut of 2014 is quite a difficult topic because Elizabeth is missing, I Am Pilgrim, Red Rising, Do No Harm, all previous winners for me, are actually debuts as well. Completely by chance how it's fallen, but I've decided to write off anything that's won another award for this one. I've gone with The Night Guest by Fiona McFarlane. I read this as part of the Guardian First Book Award, which I helped to judge, and it's set on the Australian coast. It follows a woman, Ruth, who's getting slightly older, and one day on her doorstep turns up Frida, who claims to be a government-sponsored carer. The overriding questions are, is she who she says she is? Does Ruth need the help? And it's just about how their relationship develops and how Ruth changes in this situation. And it's fascinating. Again, it's about old age and mental deterioration, and it's difficult. It's done in such a good way. It really isolates you and really disorientates you and disarms you. So you get really invested in the story. It's really well done in terms of setting. You can really picture yourself there. And it's all resolved very nicely. It does not feel like a debut. And Fiona McFarlane's going to have an amazing career. And this is the best springboard for her to have gone from ever. My final category is my favourite old book that I read in 2014. So these aren't books that were published last year. These could have been published at any point. but their books I've only just got around to and loved so much I think they deserved a mention. So one, which I've already talked about on this channel, is Carlos Ruiz Zafón, Shadow of the Wind. It's quite a literary kind of thriller. It's kind of if Dan Brown and John le Carré had a baby, he'd write this kind of fiction. I absolutely love this. Its writing style is brilliant, the mystery is great, and there are so many twists in there you just do not see coming. If you want to know more, check out my last video where I talked about it in a bit more detail, but it's definitely one that's worth picking up if you've not got round to it. My winner of Best Older Book that I read in 2014, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, Murakami. He doesn't need any introduction, really. It's someone I've been eyeing up for a while but never read, and a few of my colleagues raved so much about this I decided to take the plunge. It's hard to explain what this is about. I didn't know what it was about when I went into it, and if I'm brutally honest, I'm not 100% sure I know what it's about now. But it's a very weird, slightly trippy experience, and I do feel like it's changed how I approach literature, and especially literary fiction. The characters are very, very well developed, and there are some scenes in there which are just so vivid. There's a scene where somebody gets skinned, and I can still picture it now. It makes me squirm thinking about it. It's that well written, and props to the translation. It's originally Japanese, and the translator's done an incredible job with it. I definitely want to read more Murakami after this, and I'm very glad I finally took the plunge because I enjoyed this book even more than I thought I would. So that's it. My awards 2014. I think it was a great year for reading. There are so many books that just missed out on getting a mention. If you've read any of the books, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my choices. I know there's quite a few books in there that a lot of people will have read, so let me know what you guys thought. The next thing I'll be back with, probably over the weekend, is a review of Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I'll be honest, I'm going to gush quite a lot because just wait. Just you wait. As always, if you liked the video, please leave a like and a comment down below, and I'll definitely get back to you if you comment. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found my choices interesting, and I will see you soon with my next video.